Welcome to the Birth Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Hoff, BSN RN. I am a wife, a mother of two, and a nurse specializing in the care of women and newborns. In this podcast, we will share powerful journeys of birth givers with the goals of lifting the veil on the birth experience, healing through sharing, and beginning an open conversation to strengthen trust and promote transparency between birthing people and healthcare providers. Pearls of Wisdom is a series of the Birth Journeys podcast where I highlight some of the most profound thoughts that each mother has shared with me. It is so powerful for birthing people to hear from others who have been through the metamorphosis of motherhood, and it is so important for women to have a voice in this process. In almost every episode of the Birth Journeys podcast, I ask my guests the following question. If you could go back and talk to yourself before your pregnancy journey started, what message would you want to tell yourself? In this episode, I have compiled the answers that each guest has given to this question. Please enjoy these pearls of wisdom. Neri Life Choma.
The birth story of a woman, it goes for generations. And if she feels bad and she feels that things were imposed on her, and if she feels that it was traumatic, it builds also our collective awareness at the end. And it is so important that she feels she is not only cared for, but also listened to. That people ask her questions and we're really interested in her psyche, how she feels about things and what will make her feel better. And that those people come with zero agenda. I think this is one of the biggest challenges, especially for millennials who are the people that are giving birth right now. They grew up with a very packed schedule and everything was planned so carefully by their parents. Me, my generation, guilty as charged. And they need to just show up for a very unpredictable experience. It is about performing at the peak of your ability and going through this very unpredictable, challenging, chaotic, sometimes horrific experience that at some point also involve pain, right? And is taking you totally out of your comfort zone. And sometimes I want to say, just talking to them about natural birth, the concept is a little bit deceiving. Yes, it is in our nature to give birth vaginally. However, the experience of going through vaginal birth for a modern woman is not natural. It's not part of her everyday life. And in this respect, it's not natural. And it's funny that we were talking about natural birth and we were talking about the natural birth movement. And at the same time, we were all using the metaphor that childbirth is like a marathon run. Well, do you think running a marathon is natural to anyone? It is so not natural. You need to emotionally, mentally, physically prepare for this run. And in this respect, just telling our students and our clients, your body was designed for it. It's natural for your body. I must tell you, in the last 10 years, I feel that it is deceiving.
Maya Miller. I'm wondering if maybe there is something that you would want to tell yourself just because it's helpful for new moms that are starting their journey to hear what people wish they'd known.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I didn't have anybody in my life that had a positive birth story. So with every movie that I watched, Knocked Up, where there's screaming in pain, purple pushing, sweating, swearing at your partner, you did this to me, and then all of the traumatic births that my friends have had, and also how awful their postpartum was because they didn't do the work that they needed to ahead of time in order to have a healthy pregnancy, like balancing minerals, like a spore-based probiotic, prebiotics, like all of these things, reducing stress. Really didn't touch on some of that stuff, but it's like so important. So I had this negative perception of childbirth. And that was probably one of the reasons I prolonged it so long, because I was terrified. I had this very logical fear of birth because of my experience in the medical system, the stories that were seeded by my friends and family. And I wish that I had access to some of this information earlier, because then I would understand that like my body was born to do this. And it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my entire life. And maybe I wouldn't be 45 dang years old, you know, trying to keep up with the 5-month-old and wanting to have additional children with my husband.
Devin Garcia, if you could go back and talk to yourself, what would you want to say to yourself?
First of all, I would like to say to try to be in the moment and not have anxiety about what's going to happen, because who knows? You don't even know what's going to happen in the next moment, right? So to just enjoy the moment you're in. It's such a special time to be with your baby and to have a little baby growing inside of you. Stop thinking forward and just live in the moment would be the number one thing. And I would have loved to have tried a water birth, but being induced, that wasn't going to happen. So I would have said to myself, it's great to have a birth plan. And I did, but also keep an open mind so you don't get annoyed at other stuff that's going on. Because on top of everything, you don't need to be feeling annoyed. And that having an epidural is a tool. My midwife said that to me. She's like, it's not a failure. It's not an easy way out. It's just a tool to help get the baby in your arms. So I would definitely keep that in mind going forward, because I wanted to try unmedicated. And then because I couldn't, a little bit of me felt like a failure, but it wasn't like we were talking about. I was so tensed up. Like, who knows what would have happened if I was stubborn and just tense the whole time. I pushed for only 15 minutes. That was great. And maybe that would have been 2 hours if I was really tense.
Well, also, and I think people forget that labor isn't just that period of time where you get your epidural and you push. You went from 9 o'clock in the morning to about 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, like 9 to 9, basically.
Got your epidural.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really long time to not have an epidural. You did a lot of the hard work then. And you prepared also physically by doing the yoga poses to get the baby in the right position. So you really did a lot of work before you got your epidural. The epidural, like you said, was a tool that got you over that one little hump.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people want to try without. And if you can do it, that is amazing. You're a warrior. You're great. But if you can't, definitely don't feel like a failure, because if your baby is in your arms, that's really all that matters.
Kiona Nessenbaum, if you could go back and talk to yourself before you got pregnant that first time, what would you want to say?
I would say trust your gut and your intuition, because even though I was young, I still knew what I wanted and I still knew what I was capable of, regardless of everybody around me telling me otherwise. And do your research. And that's might be hard because that's such a blanket statement. Do your research, you know? But for example, I really wanted midwifery and I just didn't know what it was called at the time. I didn't know what to look for. And by the time I was postpartum, I did know, but I didn't accomplish it. And so even if I did my research back then, I may not have landed in a midwife's care, but going through the experience of not being in midwifery care, I would have chosen midwife. But I think that's it. And then if I could do it per pregnancy, can I do it per pregnancy?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Go for it.
So with my first, I would go back and do research and look for midwifery care. For my second, I would say be proud about who's in your space. With my third, if I was to change anything about my third, it would be probably to not focus so much on the negative ways that I was feeling in my labor and pregnancy, because I was very much, my headspace when I was trying to get pregnant was hard. It took us a long time to conceive her. A lot was going on in the world and everything like that. So I felt like all of that came into my pregnancy and my birth. So I was a lot more stressed out. I carried a lot of negative or uncontrollable energy with me throughout that pregnancy and birth. And I felt it in my labor. It was the most intense. And when I was done, I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then, of course, as my daughter got older, I was like, oh, you're so cute, maybe. But I was like, nah, because she's a Sour Patch and she will like literally kiss you and then slap you across the face and then kiss you again. So
I totally get that. I had the same feelings. Steph Sellen. If you could go back and talk to yourself before that first pregnancy, do you have a message for yourself?
I would definitely talk to different OBs and midwives and do more research. The swelling that I had that was so bad. And that one, I gained like 90 pounds. So I feel like there were so many signs and symptoms that something wasn't right. But I just listened to the doctor. Like I asked a question. He said, no, you're fine. I didn't advocate for myself at all. I just took his word for it. So, and I feel like if I would have pushed more, I don't think I would have actually been diagnosed with preeclampsia. Like they could have done stuff before. And I mean, I've had 6 pregnancies since then, and I haven't had preeclampsia yet because they induced me before, so
yeah,
I would just learn more and not just take doctor's word for it. Not saying I'm a doctor. I'm just saying advocate for yourself.
Find a doctor
more.
that you can trust and that you're aligned with, and learn more yourself so that you know the signs.
Yeah. Yep, that'd be it.
Wendy Powell. If you could go back and talk to yourself at any point in this process, where would you want to go? And what would you want to say?
Gosh, I think, from what I know of what happened during the births that I had, as far as I'm aware, I don't think they could have been prevented. So I don't think there's anything different I could have asked for or done or should have done. So I think if I could go back to talk to myself at that time, it would be that reassurance of you haven't done anything wrong. And that there's going to be medics that rush in and out and haven't got time. They've got a job to do. They've got a priority list. And small talk is not the top of the priority list. I get that. I think we all understand that. So I think it would be about a reassurance and a nurturing, if you like, handhold almost to say, it's okay. Just let them do what they need to do. This bit is out of your hands, and that's okay. And it's not because you did anything wrong. And if they're rushed, that's because they're really good at their job and they're getting on with it and making sure you're okay. So I think it would be a reassurance. And also what we talked about before of, for now, they're in control, but the baby's yours, the body's yours. You'll get it all back. So I think it'll be something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's really important. You'll get it all back. And then stepping into that.
So the moment we hand over, and that's okay. That's really is okay.
And you make the choice to hand over.
Yeah.
You relinquish that. And then you decide when to take that back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Remembering that you have that control. Yeah, I think a lot of moms forget that they can get their power back. Emily Finnell, if you could go back and talk to yourself during those experiences, what would you say?
See, I've thought about this before. I feel like with the first pregnancy, it was like I would just want her to relax and trust, because I didn't really get into it, but I definitely had some postpartum anxiety. I had never experienced anxiety really at all in my life until the hormones of pregnancy and childbirth. I mean, honestly, it was like a night and day switch for me. Because, I mean, we talk about what women don't know, what you don't realize your body is going to go through. Those hormones are strong. And new things come in that you've never felt before. And I was that mom that was like, is he breathing? Is he breathing? Is he breathing? I was just so afraid. I think it was just that intensity of vulnerability of loving something so much that you're terrified something could happen. And I also think I had mentally prepared myself to give birth to like a 6-month-old. And instead, this little alien came out that I was like, is he a live? He's so tiny. So I think going back, it's funny that I even say this because my dad did give me this advice at the time, but I don't think I was receptive to it. But I tended to seek outside knowledge instead of trust myself. I had to read all of the sleep training books and the parenting books. And it was like everything I read, I would jump on board to different ideas, like sleep training or not sleep training. And my father noticed this about me and he said, I want you to put the books down and I want you to trust that you know how to be a mother. You instinctually know. Trust yourself. And like I said, I probably wasn't as receptive as I should have been, because looking back, that would be the advice I would give to myself during the pregnancy, but specifically after the pregnancy. And with the second pregnancy, gosh, I feel like I just would love to let her know that whatever she thinks is going to happen, it is so much more expansive and amazing and abundant than she could ever have dreamed. Because I just
I was so living in the moment. And like I described back when I didn't have that light at the end of the tunnel. But the truth is I had to experience all that. I don't actually regret it. I don't wish it away. I would want to just assure her that it's going to be okay.
Natalie Davis, if you could go back and talk to yourself at any point in any of your birthing experiences, where would you go and what would you say?
Gosh, I think I would go to all those moments of doubt and just the first thing that kind of came to mind for me, maybe it's kind of corny, is just like, you got this, like you can do this. And, if I were able to go back and give myself that support, probably that, and then like ask for help when you need it. Be nice to yourself. You got this. And then just like ask for help.
Right. Yeah. And knowing, like, put the plan in place to know who to ask. Because if you have to think about who you're going to ask and what you're going to ask, then you're just going to lay down.
Yeah.
You're just going to be like, it's not getting done.
It's so true.
Stefanie Fernandes, if you could go back to prior to your birth experience and talk to yourself, what would you want to tell yourself?
That's a nice question. I think I would tell myself that the postpartum period, especially the first 6 months, are not like in the movies. Sometimes, I know that birth is not like in the movies, and I knew that. It's not like your water breaks while you're standing in the kitchen and you have this huge pond underneath you, and then you go to the hospital and the baby's here. I knew that, but I didn't know that about the postpartum period. I thought it's going to be this pink cloud that I'm sitting on, and it's perfect, and it's easy, and it's so natural. And my baby and me will be in the perfect symbiosis. And I will be this mom that prepares homemade meals. And it was such an unrealistic expectation of what I thought it was going to be. I wish I could go back and tell myself, however this is going to be, it's just fine. It's just right.
Yeah.
You don't need to do anything. You don't have to look anything particular, and your child doesn't have to do anything particular. All you have to do is be there in the moment and present, and be a bit more courageous of feeling what you're feeling, because that was difficult for me.
Yeah. I think all moms need to hear that. That's really good. Alex Wachelka, if you could go back and talk to yourself before this whole experience, what would you want to tell yourself? Even if it's just like reassurance.
That's a really great question. Probably to just continue to trust myself and my instincts. And it's something that I tell all moms that I work with, because they're there for a reason. Whether you truly know what the issue is, I've yet, in 2 years of doing this, I've yet to meet a mom who has said, I feel like something's off, or I feel like this is the issue, and she has been wrong. Like, they're right every single time. Whether it's truly what the issue is, or we find, there's a different root cause. When a mom says, so-and-so said it's fine, but I think it's this, or I think something's wrong, they are right. And I think part of me as a brand new mom was hearing, well, your body's not going to keep up with him as he gets older, and thinking, that's not right. I know I can do it. I'll figure it out myself then. Or like, oh no, the pain is normal. Well, no, you know what? There's no way this is normal. How have people breastfed children since humans existed if this is what they're feeling? And I think that's what I'd probably just try and reinforce that message to myself. I'll keep listening to yourself, because your instincts are there for a reason. They're telling you something. You might not know exactly what they are, but they're telling you something. So follow them. And I probably could have got breastfeeding help a little bit sooner and not experienced so much damage, because I thought this isn't normal. But then I had society's idea of like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's normal. Push on through. Let them toughen up. Like, all this misinformation. I was like, okay, it drowned out what I truly felt inside was, this can't be normal. So I would just reinforce that to myself.
Well, and I feel like we medicalize everything nowadays. And there is this innate ability to birth and feed a baby that just needs to be supported. And, I'm a nurse and I do medical interventions, and I'm grateful for them when they're needed. But there's a lot that can just go ahead and happen a lot of the time. And having to push formula on someone that doesn't want it. Now, if somebody wants formula, perfect. If that's how you want to feed your baby, good. That's there for you. But if somebody wants to breastfeed, it's equally important to have that support. Bridget Panetta, what point would you want to go meet yourself, and what would you say?
Oh, this is good. It's tough, because I want to say to the pre-mum, just drop expectation. Don't try and be perfect. It's not going to work. Like, you need to love your flaws and know that you're going to have a lot of them soon. I think that would set me up the best, because I thought I had everything perfect. Even just becoming pregnant, like, I've had previous partners and things, but I just knew they weren't the right one. I knew I never wanted to have a child with them. Like, it just didn't feel right. And then I met James and I just knew straight away. And so I felt like everything I did was right. I waited, I did the right thing. I made sure that we were, financially in the right position. I had done things in my career that I was proud of, and I was ready to move on to the next stage. But literally everything got ripped from under me. So just telling that person nothing's ever perfect, and you can't expect, just because you think you've ticked all these boxes, that the universe is going to just give you this easy run. Things are going to be tough, and you need to be able to accept that just because you think it should be like this, it's not always going to be the way you want it to be. That would be to the pre-baby Bridget. And then I think when I was in the thick of it, it would just be look after yourself, love yourself and look after yourself. And that's all you can do. You can't worry about everyone else, anything else. Just love that version of you.
Have you ever felt like your hormones are running the show? If you're dealing with sudden weight gain, sleepless nights, or a missing spark in your sex drive, it's time to flip the script with the Book of Hormones, the ultimate playbook for women's health and hormonal balance through every stage of life, by Dr. Shweta Patel. Dr. Patel, a highly regarded OBGYN, breaks down the mystery of hormones in a way that's easy to understand. No medical jargon, just real-life solutions. With a writing style that's Mindy Project meets Sex and the City, she'll have you laughing, nodding, and finally understanding your body. From managing postpartum and PCOS to tackling hormonal imbalances head-on, this book is packed with actionable steps to help you take control of your health. It's like having your gyno BFF hand you the ultimate playbook to thrive. Want to feel amazing again? Download it free on Kindle Unlimited or buy it now on Amazon. Find the link in the show notes. Dr. Michelle Gerby.
I've had friends who've had births in other countries, and they're like, oh yeah, well, a nurse comes to your house, and there's community lactation support and free clinics, and we send doulas, and it's just our system is not set up for that, and it's like I feel like the baby has the pediatrician. If they're gaining okay and meeting their milestones, then they're fine. And then mom's cut loose after 6 weeks. And that's when I think most of those things just start snowballing.
Well, that's
and they
where,
just don't know who to go to.
Yeah. That's where my doubt came in, because people that I respected were telling me that everything was fine. I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's just me. So I just discounted
or we say
what I was
it's
thinking.
normal. Yeah, we say it's normal, but I always say just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. How many women, are like, I still feel a lot of pelvic heaviness or fullness, or I'm having hemorrhoids. And we're like, oh, it's normal. I'm like, no, it's common. It's common. It's not normal. And normal. There's actually stuff that you can do to treat it. So many things that we tell postpartum women in their own bodies: carpal tunnel, nerve pain, chronic headaches. Oh, it's just common. You just had a baby, severe low back pain. Well, it's normal. It's normal. It's like, no, it's common. And it's actually super treatable. It's really actionable. There's a ton of things you can do for free at home, but you just need the information.
Elise Nicole Kirkpatrick, what point would you go to, and what would you say to yourself?
That is a powerful question. So I think looking back, the hardest point in my motherhood journey was when I thought I was losing my family unit, going through separation and becoming a single mom. And that's actually where I started to source all of this worthiness work. That's where it was born out of, right? Because what I didn't share with you here is that I had a lot of anxiety and panic attacks and stuff when that was happening. And back then, if I could go back and tell me something, I would say, know yourself. Get clear with who you are and what you desire, because that way you'll know where to focus, and you'll be able to be super present with your children, super present with your family. No matter what the outside circumstances are, you know that you always have that love within you for yourself, for your vision of who you desire to be, the kind of mother you desire to be. And that's like the elixir for being a mama, is knowing who you desire to be. And then from that place, you can act intentionally as if you are that mom now. And then that closes the gap. So I think I had a long time there where I lost myself. And looking back, I was absolutely an incredible mother. But I felt in that time that I had lost that like sweet, gentle, playful mama that I had always been. Mm-hmm. But had I just had someone just whisper into my ear, just recalibrate, know yourself, restore, have a renaissance of who you desire to be, I probably would have been able to pull myself out of that a lot sooner.
Jenna Hodge, if you could go back and talk to yourself, what would you want to tell yourself? What message do you wish that you had going back to that first pregnancy, delivery, and motherhood experience?
A couple things. The control thing, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's just life.
Right.
But obviously it's really big in marriage and in motherhood. Those two are obviously big factors. And then also the season thing. It will not be this bad forever. Mm-hmm. Your child will sleep. You will sleep. They will not cry forever. Then they'll start talking back at you. That's my biggest tip to all moms. And I guess would apply to if I could talk to myself was to accept the season that you're in. And like I said, emphasis on season, because very few things in life are permanent. I mean, very few things. And stop trying to control what you can't control, but figure out what can you control in that season. Mm-hmm. And I think that like empowers us and gives us like, oh, I can control these things. Not in the, oh no, I have all this that I have to control. Like, no, it's actually like a more of an empowering thing. Like, I have ownership of this. Let's do this kind of mentality, more of a positive direction to go versus oh, this is so overwhelming, I can't do anything. Let go of the things you can't control right now. If you're in the season of newbornhood or toddlerhood, those are hard years. But also stop trying to like put the season of school age kids into the current season of a 3 and a 1-year-old. Yeah. It's not supposed to happen. It's not meant to happen. It's unrealistic. And then you're putting unrealistic expectations on your kids, on your life, on your circumstances that just aren't there yet. Yeah. And doubt on like where you're at now. Because once you're in that school kid age season, you're not going back to that one probably ever again if you're done with kids, you know? So you can't get your time back in like being in the moment on those things, because obviously people say they grow up so fast and, you know, this, and people are like, yeah. Especially when you're going through those years, you're like, don't tell me that. That's like the last thing I want to hear. It makes me angry or frustrated. Like my feelings don't matter in this moment. It's so hard. But I mean, how many of us do this where we like lay in bed after they go to bed and like scroll through pictures of them on our phone? And like, oh my God, they were so like, so your husband, like, remember when they said this, when they were so little? That was like a year ago. You know, a year is not that long in their 18 years of childhood, but it's so true. Like, so it helps me in those moments where I'm a go-getter. I want to be productive. I've always seen like, okay, I've got 2 seconds. Like, what can I do right now? And I have to stop myself when I'm in the moment with them to just be in it with them sometimes. The other day we were my husband and I were looking at our 2-year-old while he was eating. He's like, I just love watching when he eats. It's so cute. You know, just like those little moments like that. I'm like, I know. And if we're so busy doing all these things or trying to rush into the next season, we miss those times that we cannot get back, especially if you don't document it. All you have is your memory. Yeah. You know, so if your brain's not there and you didn't take a picture or video of it, then it's lost and gone forever. And I don't say that to be depressing, but just kind of opens your eyes a bit. It's okay to be in the moment and also see the big picture at the same time.
Amy, Suzanne, if you could just imagine going back in time and talking to yourself, what would you want to go back and tell yourself? Like, where would you go in time and what would you want to tell yourself?
I'd probably go to the very beginning, like that first pregnancy when I was literally in the hospital by myself for weeks on end, questioning everything and really angry and confused, and just probably tell myself to calm down and start trusting the process. I thought I knew my body, but I had no idea what my body was doing. And I would probably say, just tell myself, like, calm down. There's a plan here. You're just at the start of it. It'll unravel the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's relevant for all moms, right? We just kind of like get into this beginning stages of motherhood and you're like, oh my God, what have I done? But it becomes so expansive. And you're like, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Marie Carl,
what would you go back and tell yourself?
Probably to rest a lot more than I did, because I was the typical young mom wanting to do everything when my kids were sleeping, trying to do the laundry and make the house look impeccable, things that really don't matter. Because who cares? Really, who cares?
Yeah.
You're going to be a lot more efficient, a lot more fun, a lot more pleasant for anyone in your environment if you're rested.
Yeah, absolutely.
So who cares if it's a little bit dirty, It really doesn't matter.
So that sleep when the baby sleeps.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Also, listen to yourself. Stop listening to everybody who wants to give you advice. Seriously, listen to yourself, because I think listening to your guts is what gets you where you're supposed to be. Very often, I took my kids to the pediatrician, or everybody around me was like, she's fine. And then there was really something going on, because I could feel it right here. And I was like, there is something. I think a lot of people tend to give advice, and they're not always welcome, and they're not always true. And so I think listening to yourself is the most important thing you can do as a parent.
Yeah.
And learn to say, I'm sorry very early on, because you're going to mess up, because we're human. And by saying sorry, you're not demeaning yourself. You're actually showing your kids how important it is to say I'm sorry. So you're teaching them something along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Emmy Kissinger.
Yeah. And I would also say, for me, it boiled down to trusting myself fully. In those moments where a difficult question comes up, do I trust myself to listen to my heart and say what's true for me in those moments? Will I make an aligned decision, or will I sway a little bit because of what someone else is telling me? And like you said, get all of the information, get all the details, get all of the facts, but you still have to be able to trust yourself to make the decisions that you want to make. Yeah, we're mammals, so there will always be the opportunity for things to not go as planned. That's just how our bodies are made. But for me, I know learning to trust myself truly started with meditation and being able to sit quietly and hear what my intuition had to say before making a decision. And that doesn't necessarily apply to birth, because you don't do a lot of sitting quietly during birth, but it's the practice. It's the doing it over and over again, where you're like I felt that ping, or I felt, I was able to articulate what I heard during the time that I was spent listening to myself. And for others, that might be prayer, Whenever we're sitting quiet, that's how we learn to listen. And then from learning to listen and take action on that information, that's how we learn to trust ourselves. One time someone told me, imagine you're rolling a dice. Before it lands, you know what you want it to land on in those moments right before it lands. So that can kind of be another guiding light.
Thank you so much for tuning into my podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. Don't forget to share the podcast with a friend who can benefit from the valuable insights that we share here. And if you could take a moment to leave a 5-star rating and review, it would mean the world to me. If you're ready to work one-on-one with me to embark on a transformational journey towards a confident and empowered hospital birth experience, go to kellyhoff.com/empowered and enroll in my Empowered Hospital Birth Coaching Program. Together, we'll create a roadmap to a birth experience that you'll cherish forever. That's KELLYHOF.com/empowered. Let's make your birth experience extraordinary.